38. Mopriya? So the other students may leave from this link and join in your respective elective course. Only IoT B section students may stay back. Okay. So there I am seeing the other students of 538. 538, you can leave from here. Okay, students. So coming back to our topics. So in the previous classes, we are discussing about the TCP IP suites and differences between TCP and UDP. So these are the topics we are discussing previously. And now the differences. Now it is the time to discuss about the differences, the main differences between this TCP and UDP. Am I audible? My screen is visible to everyone? Am I audible, students? Can anyone respond? Am I audible? Can anyone respond here? Am I audible or not?
Audible, sir.
Okay. So coming back to the topic here, the TCP and UDP. So all you know, this is the brief already I have given in the previous class itself, the transmission control protocol. So it works with the internet protocol with the which focusing on connection, and UDP, whereas it is connectionless. So coming back to the differences, so there TCP is connection oriented and UDP is connectionless. So you need to write the differences, whereas in the end exam or in some interviews they use it to ask like the differences between the these two protocols. TCP is purely connection oriented, and where the high reliability and even the critical less transmission is can be done through TCP. And coming to UDP, so it is fast and efficient, but whereas you can you may not provide the reliability with this UDP, and packets will be rearranged in an order in TCP, but no order in UDP. So these are the main differences. Reliability wise, TCP is the topmost, whereas if you prefer the fast and efficient transmission, you may go through UDP. So likewise, these two can be differentiated, and streaming of data wise here, read every byte of stream can be read by TCP, and here in UDP, send and read individually. Everything is here done individually. So coming to error checking, here error checking can be enabled and provided, and recovery also. So coming to this UDP, so this, there is no error recovery. And coming to acknowledgement, so here we are having the acknowledgement segments, and whereas in UDP there is no acknowledgement. So these are the main differences between the TCP and UDP. So that everyone need to keep in your mind that so TCP is always connection oriented and UDP is connectionless. And TCP is reliable and UDP is not reliable. Okay, so these are the main differences between TCP and UDP. And coming to the next topic here, IP addressing in the IoT. IP addressing in the IoT. Put the heading IP addressing in IoT. So all you know, internet protocol based on IP addressing. So we are going to assign some devices. We are going to assign this to some devices of our Internet of Things. Their number of missions and number of internet-enabled devices are there, embedded with sensors. Their static IP address is there, dynamic IP address, DNS, DHCP. So IP addresses comprises with the following topics: static IP address, dynamic IP address. So all you know what is meant by IP address. Already you got such a brief overview in your computer network subject. All you aware about it, the basic knowledge you are having. And DNS and DHCP. So these two are the additional topics got enhanced here. And coming to media access control, shortly we call it as MAC. So here these are the topics regarding IP addresses. So all you know, what is meant by IP header, what is meant by IP address. There they have discussed the various types of decimals here. The decimal number value consisting of 8 bits is called as octet, all you know. So there they have given the IP address with consists of 32 bits, whereas if it is IPv4, it consists of 32 bits. So it can be considered as four decimal numbers separated by the dots. So the representation already you know, it can be able to access through your systems. So IP header consists of source and destination addresses called IP addresses. So the header itself consists of the source and destination addresses called IP addresses. Okay. So here we are right now discussing about IPv4. Same as like that, we need to discuss about IPv6 also. So there, the classful addressing is divided into 5 subclasses. The 5 subclasses are class A, B, C, D, E. So already discussed thoroughly in your network subject, computer networks. So here network ID is there, host ID is there. So there are different classes. So these classes use it to represent different range of value, different range of valid IP addresses. The class D and E are reserved for the multicast and experimental purposes. Class D and E are special case, that is multicast and experimental purpose. So the order of bits, based on the order of bits, the first octet determine the classes of IP address. So usually to identify a particular IP address from which class it belongs, from which class it is. So we use it to identify it based on the order of the bits in the first octet determine from which class it is. So basically there is 19 series, 18 series. Based on your register number, we can enable, we can simply estimate from which year you are. So you are studying 3rd year. So your roll number is this. Based on your roll number, we can identify from which branch you are, from which year you are. We can identify. Likewise, here also, with these IPs, with these IP addresses, so the first order of bits, the first octet, the first 8 bits, we can identify them class of IP addresses. So here IPv4 addresses is divided into 2 parts. One is network ID, another one is host ID. So this is all regarding the description. So there you need to write, give a brief regarding the IP addressing there. So you need to describe the bits and use it to identify the network ID and host ID. So here it is used to determine the bits used for network ID. Host ID is and the number of total networks and hosts possible in that particular class. That means whereas internet service provider or network administrator will assign some IP. So there you can check it in your laptop, or there you can check it in your internet service provider's app or login. There you are having a particular IP in your system. You can go through that IP. So there each and every device connected to our network can be get identified or can be get connected with such type of IP address. Without IP address, there is no device. So likewise, so class A, the byte 1 is net ID, remaining byte 2, byte 3, byte 4 is host ID. Coming to class B, net ID will be occupied with byte 1 and byte 2, and the remaining 2, byte 3 and byte 4 with host ID. Byte 1, byte 2, byte 3, it is net ID. So remaining the last one, byte 4, is simply host ID. As I told, their network ID will be there, host ID will be there. Our address is divided into 2 parts. So our address is divided into 2 parts. So there 5 classes are there. We have divided. So based on these 32-bit IP addresses are divided into 5 classes, A, B, C, D, E. And coming to class A, byte 1 is reserved for net ID. Remaining 3 will be going to represent host ID. Coming to class B, the half of the bytes will be provided to net ID and another half will be provided for host ID. Coming to class C, the majority part, the 3 bytes space will be given to net ID and byte 4 will be host ID. So likewise, we got categorized. But coming to class D and E, these are the special cases, whereas these class D is multicast address and class E is reserved case. Okay, so this is all regarding the classes of IP addressing. There you can observe the tabular form here. You use it to indicate or use it to identify a particular address. So class B, how the class A will be 0.0. Start address. So you can observe the start addresses shown on our screen, and there everything here represented with number of net ID bits, and as well as the host ID bits also there. So number of networks they are connected with, and addresses per network, start address and end address. So likewise, this tabular form is to differentiate different classes of IP addresses. Okay, so not defined state. The special cases class D and E is not defined with the different columns. There you can observe there is no net ID, host ID, number of networks, address per networks. Those are not defined for class D and E. Why? Because these two are reserved for, one is class D for multicast addresses and class E is for reserved addresses. Okay, so this is all about the tabular form. Coming to static IP address and dynamic IP address. So it is the one assigned by the internet service provider. Static IP address is given by our service providers. There are different local service providers, net service providers. There we are having different broadband services. They use it to assign. They use it to assign such type of static IP address to us. Am I audible, students? Is it clear? Is the topic what I am describing now? Is it clear to everyone? Anybody having any doubts? So purely it is very easy to understand. Whereas all you are computer science students, so all you can easily understand these topics. So a network IP address, IP, routers, service providers, all these are the actual issues where we can provide the awareness to the other people. So actually this is a simple topic. We must give the awareness to others. Computer science student must provide such awareness to others. So service providers may provide this individual address, that is static IP address. Then the company has number of hosts. Generally, you consider any multinational company, call center, internet center, or any Infosys or TCS, any multinational company, you consider there might be number of devices, number of hosts in their company. The service provider may provide with the class C network addressing, consisting of a group of 254 IP addresses. So it is a new scheme called as a classless internet domain routing, CIDR. So a new scheme it is provided. CIDR is used nowadays. Most of the companies are using this CIDR. It is a new scheme, whereas it is a classless internet domain routing. So there is no class. So representing the class C, it is C. Under C, it is allotted with 4 IP addresses. There /4. With the /4, they have represented there. You can observe the there the /4 where I have placing this cursor. So you can observe the example. The class C 198.136.56.0/4 means it comes under the class C category, allotted the 4 IP addresses for internet routing by the 4 public domain servers. So likewise, you can identify the class and you can identify the number of IP addresses provided to that particular company by our service providers. So static IP address means it is one assigned by the internet service provider, ISP. Okay, so that you need to remember in your mind. And next one is dynamic IP address. Whereas it is not static IP address is provided by internet service provider. But coming to this dynamic IP address, it is once a device connect to the network. So generally it is purely related to, it needs to be allotted to an individual IP address. A device, a particular, when device connects to a router, or router and the device uses this DHCP, that is dynamic host control protocol. Hope all you are using the routers at your home for Wi-Fi connectivity. Hope all you are having the broadband service or Wi-Fi in your at your home. There you can observe this dynamic host control protocol DHCP in your system for the configuring your routers there. So assigns with some particular IP address at an instance to particular device. So the difference between static and IP, static is provided by service provider, whereas it is related to once our device connect to internet means it is purely related to an individual's IP address, an individual's computational device connects to their router in order to provide Wi-Fi or in order to provide from for various types of internet services. So this is the main difference between the static and dynamic IP addresses. Okay. So this address is calling, why we are calling it as dynamic address means, so simply device disconnects or switch off means the router boots again. So generally if the power goes off, our router will restart. The dynamic, if the dynamic address lost, a new allocation takes place when the device reconnects. So just assume that whereas if you lost the power or if your router is damaged, then it will again comes under functioning means it will be get a new dynamic IP address will be assigned to it. So coming to DNS, so all you know the DNS also, all you got aware this regarding this topic in your computer networks. So here the DNS is also a typical topic where we need to discuss about. Our author has given some source for it, so you can go through the Raj Kamal, our textbook, Internet of Things and their design principles. So you can go through it. The web content there he has provided. The top level domain, we call it as the top level domains. And this top level domain furtherly subdivided into some co.in, institutional or government wise gov.in or gov.uk. So as all you know, the government websites or institutional websites are represented with the .in. Likewise, they use it to indicate their website addresses there, ends with this co.in, gov.in, and even if organizational addresses are going to represent it with .org. So if you like to access any web server, hosted any domain or with any website name, there I have given the example with our textbook author, rajkamal.org. So which can be easily understandable by each and every one of you. That's why I have given this example. So here it provides the domain names at a certain cost per year. So usually if any organization or yourself as an individual, you got established some business or you got established some software company, there you need to reserve some domain. So you need to get some domain name. So even for domain names also there will be some certain cost per year. So DNS, it is the DNS server always you at the register control panel, which is called as control panel, shortly called as cPanel. Use it to configure these names, domain names system, DNS. You may note down the acronym of this DNS. What we till now what we discussed is that is the full form is domain names system. So there usually everyone wants to establish an organization or a particular institution or a particular company or any type of government organization .gov. So based on these domain names, you can identify which type of organization it is in some cases. In some cases, .org means it's an organization, it's a charitable trust, it's a hospital, or it's a research center, or it's a research consultancy or institution. Likewise, you can identify with the help of this DNS, the domain names. If there are the websites like GoDaddy or these are the various companies to support you to provide various domain names. To guide you to get these domain names. Why? Because there is lots of competition regarding this DNS, this domain names space. So the domain names system there. So all you know already, if you want to establish a business means you need some website and that website could be always indicated with .uk or .in. So generally represents the country there, UK, IN, India. So generally one can simply represent their DNS or their domain with indicates with the organization, indicates with country, indicates with their government. So usually likewise there are number of domain name systems that will be get indicated, and usually to control or to configure there is a panel called as C panel, control panel. The DNS server at the register has a control panel. Okay, coming to DHCP. So when a sensor, so DHCP is purely adopting here connected with our IoT subject. So that with this DHCP, what is the full form of DHCP? Can anyone tell the full form of DHCP? Are you there, students? So there are 23 members are there in class right now. So can anyone tell what is meant by DHCP, full form of DHCP? DNS, what is meant by DNS? Right now we are talking about DNS and DHCP. Can anyone give the full form, acronym of these DNS and DHCP? Am I audible, students? Am I audible? Can anyone give the difference between this DHCP and can anyone give the difference between these two? So there on screen on the current slide, you can observe the full form, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, DHCP. So there the server consists of number of subnets, whereas a large network consists of number of subnets in it. So its own IP address to provide the connectivity to the network. So a server has its own IP address to provide the connectivity to the internet. Yes, am I right? So here, whereas any type of sensor, actuator, or IoT device, or machine-to-machine device, or number of nodes, whereas any mission or any computational device, tablet, mobile, any device connected with a network here considered as a node. Am I right? That node needs to connect to the network. There, a server called DHCP server that provides this dynamic IP address, subnet mask, and ARP and RARP caches. So where if you want to connect with a particular network means where our server helps us, that is called DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Use it to provide the dynamic IP address to your mobile, to your system, or to your tablet, or to your any type of smart device or computational device or personal digital assistants, where all the devices, if you want to connect with a network like internet, there our devices got accumulated with the sensors, or fixed with actuators, or fixed with smart sensors, where our devices need to get some IP address, dynamic IP address, that will be get processed and provided by this DHCP server. DHCP means Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So there, every server has its own IP address to provide the connectivity to our internet. So Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol is a protocol dynamically provide the new IP addresses, set of subnet mask for the connected node. So there you can observe our device or our mobile, our computer can get these new IP addresses or set of subnet mask with the help of this DHCP. So it is a protocol. DHCP is a protocol to provide the various IP addresses in a dynamical way. It uses it to provide the various IP addresses in order to connect with a network like internet. Our devices will be get supported by this DHCP. Okay, without DHCP, it is impossible to get these dynamic IP addresses. Whereas subnet server and subnet router at the communication framework, they got involved and they are going to support our nodes there. So IP addresses are configured here, and administrator or any type of user does simply aware regarding the whole process. So DHCP enables the process of configuring various IP addresses that cannot be done manual, that can be automatically done at a startup. So whereas in other cases it can be done manually, but here all the process of configuring these IP addresses can be done automatically. Okay, So these are the various differences between the static IP and dynamic IP. So use it to write in your end examination. Usually in interviews also, they used to ask like that. The main differences is here is the static IP is fixed. The name itself, it is representing static means fixed. So it could not be changed until the user wants to change. Okay. But dynamic IP, it changes frequently. The time to each time the user connects to a network, this dynamic IP is going to change. So static IP is configured by, not by us, it is configured by internet service provider. But whereas this dynamic IP can be configured by this DHCP, dynamic host configuration protocol. Every time we got assigned with a new IP when we connect with a new network. So the associated risk here, the associated risk of website hacking is large in static IP address. All you know already, hacking, intruders, hackers, this is a high-end hectic headache for our clients. And whereas in cyber security and cyber network, cyber police, all these got involved regarding the investigations of bank transactions mainly, and our privacy of data is also get given high priority, and preference will be given here. Where there is lots of risk with these website hacking in large with this static IP address. If you opt this static IP address, there might be risk of this hacking. Yes. So it's always constant. Why? Because it always constant. One can easily access and one can easily hack your particular IP when it is static IP. Okay. As against the low risk regarding this dynamic IP address. Why? Because it is not always constant. It is going to change every time when you connect with a new device, with a new network. Every time it is going to change. But whereas in static IP, the static IP is always associated with risk. That you need to understand here. Static IP address is having a more risk when compared with the dynamic IP address. Why? Because it is constant, and then there hackers can get focused on static IP because it is fixed. Okay. When the device is configured with static IP address, that it can be tracked. Whereas our service provider got assigned some IP address to us, whatever the various activities performing by us, whatever the content browsing by us, everything according to the privacy policy given by the government and given by this internet consortium or internet standard organizations, they can able to access the information what we are browsing and what we are accessing. If it is inappropriate, if it is irrelevant or illegal, such activities can be get identified with our IP. So there our static IP address is going to be tracked with authorities, internet authorities, whereas it is provided by internet service provider. But coming to this dynamic IP address, tracking of the device is very difficult. This IP address is always changing. It is not fixed. So whereas the new technique, to intruders or hackers are got introduced, that they use it to implement this dynamic IP at the hacker side, and they use it to hack the static IP. That's the technique actually what they are following now. So these are the main key differences between static IP and dynamic IP. And coming to the key differences between DNS and DHCP, DNS used for resolving and recursively resolving the address to name and name to address of the host. On the other hand, DHCP, so you can consider DHCP, it is to allocating the address to the host in the network dynamically or statically. So there our DHCP is responsible for allocating the address to our devices over the network, our host over the network. So DNS supports the port number 53. DHCP could either support with this 67 or 68. So there you can observe the key differences between static IP and dynamic IP already completed. So all you got, hope all you got clear with this topic, static and dynamic IP. Anybody having any doubts regarding this static IP and dynamic IP? So coming back to this differences between this DNS and DHCP, DNS uses port number 53. So please note down in your running notes, please note down that the port number for DNS is 53 and DHCP could be either 67 or 68. Okay. So this DHCP supports only UDP. But whereas this DNS can support both TCP and UDP. Okay, so here servers in DNS and DHCP perform different operations. So when you compare with the servers of DNS and DHCP, DNS server is responsible for accepting the queries from the client and responding back to that client. So it is responsible for giving the responses to clients regarding this DNS server. Okay, whereas coming to this DHCP server, so even along with the results also, DNS server is responsible. But coming to DHCP server, it is only responsible for allocating the temporary addresses to the client missions. And for lease or for rent time, for lease time, then extending them based on the payment, based on the fee, whatever they are paying, leased according to their requirement. Based on the requirement only, you need to pay. Pay as you use. Pay as you use is the policy there. They use it to implement with this DHCP server. So DNS follows the hierarchy. DNS follows the hierarchy, which does not allow the storage of all the domain names at one place. Instead of it breaks and into subdomains and various types of particular pieces of information, it stores as different types of pieces in particular server. But this decentralized, it is in a decentralized manner. But DHCP configures the IP addresses of clients. A pool of IP addresses always centrally handles there with this DHCP server, but not directly. But here with the number of clients uses the router to receive the DHCP broadcast and relay with these DHCP servers. So these are the main differences. Can I repeat the differences? So here with the DNS, we can resolve and recursively resolving the addresses. So addresses to name and name or name to address of the host. So here there DNS is responsible for resolving the issues or resolving the issues regarding your address to name or name to address of your host. But coming to this DHCP, allocating various types of addresses to your host, whether it is dynamically or statically, it is responsible. Our DHCP is responsible for allocating a particular address, whether it is to our host, whether it is dynamically or statically. So it is going to provide. So DNS is having a port number 53. DHCP are having port number either it is 67 or 68. It supports UDP only. DHCP supports UDP only, but DNS can support both the TCP and UDP. Okay, am I audible, students? Is it clear to everyone? Anybody having any doubts? Am I clear? Anyone can respond. Am I audible? Is my voice is clear? Is the lesson is clear? Anybody having any doubts till now? Please respond. Anybody having any doubts? Or otherwise you can text here through the text box, or you can respond here. Unmute yourself, respond here. Am I audible? Everyone following the lesson? Anybody having any doubts? So there I have described the differences between DNS and DHCP. So these are the various differences. So with the DNS, there it follows the certain hierarchy, and it may not store the all domain names at one place. It various types of pieces like subdomains it uses to store. But whereas this DHCP is stores the whole IP addresses as a pool. Okay. But coming to this DNS, there it follows the decentralized mechanism. Okay. Coming to media access control, it is shortly called as MAC. MAC address, media access control. The network connected node has a MAC address. So each network connected node, whereas every computer or every mobile or every device which connected with a network may have at each node it has a MAC address there. So each device node receives the data stack using the MAC addresses. So media means physical media. Either it might be fiber or wire which the device or node access the internet. So all you know there, the LAN wire is there in our labs usually to connect with our systems or laptops. Like a telephone pin, there is a LAN cable every time used to connect with our computers to get access the internet. So here media means that physical media like fiber, optical fiber cables or wires used to carry this internet to reach us, to reach or to get the internet to our systems. Thus media, thus here media means physical media. So nodes can be used same physical network and IP addresses. So node means here whether it is a IoT device or any sensor or actuator or controller or any computer or mobile or smartphone, then that data link layer which communicates to the internet. All you know the data link layer, that data link layer which communicates to the internet, that MAC address is 48-bit there. There its MAC address is 48-bit. So you can assume there is a LAN, there is a wire connected to your device, whether it is IoT device like a camera, like a smartphone. So like any type you can assume, not a smartphone actually, it is an IoT device connected with some particular a particular IP address, the physical network and IP address. So here we call those devices as some node. Node means a computer. Node means a IoT device. Node is nothing but our gadget, our computational device. So at every computational device connected to a network, that node is having, the device is having an MAC address, a MAC address there. So each network card or Ethernet protocol using communicating node has a unique MAC address. The source and the destination node addresses. Usually the source may have unique MAC address and the destination may have different node address. The node addresses are different. With the Ethernet protocol, we use the same Ethernet protocol to communicate in between these nodes, source and the destination. So there, the Ethernet frame communicates before the data stack, the source node MAC address and the destination MAC address. So usually to communicate between the source and destination, there the data stack source node, before the communication, the data stack source node MAC address is at destination and at the source node actually. So from both ends, the Ethernet frame communicates before the data stack is going to get delivered at the other end. So MAC address of each node is specified with firmware, the network card or chip or core. So in which way one can specify this MAC address means it is either a firmware of network card or chip or core. Generally it is a chip, generally it is a card, or generally it is a core. So here ARPANET, all you know ARPANET there in your computer network. So ARP here is address resolution protocol, enables each and every computer, each and every computational device connected to our network can be addressed by the MAC address. Here node receives the network data from a router. Usually there is a router placed at nearby our devices or nodes. The router is having some IP address. It is going to receive, our nodes are going to receive a network with the help of with the support of these routers. So all you know, with the help of routers only we can able to get this data. Okay, so this is all regarding the TCP, UDP and DHCP, DNS, the differences, main differences with these and as well as the MAC also. So anybody having any doubts till now? Anybody having any doubts? So proceeding to the next topic, the application layer protocols. It is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTPS ports. So all you know, there are different port numbers we are having. HTTP port number is 80, HTTPS port number is 443. Okay, so you may note down that. HTTP port number is 80, HTTPS port number is 443. So there is an authority called as IANA, Internet Assigned Number Authority, called as IANA. IANA is responsible for these ports which are registered, which are well-known ports from 0 to 1023. These are well-known ports, whereas 10242, 49151 are the registered ports. The other in between these other are unregistered. Okay. So their HTTP port number is represented with 80 and HTTPS port number is 443, whereas it is a secured one. HTTP is only purely going to transfer the data, is going to transfer the data. So with this protocol, hypertext transfer protocol with number holding number port number 80, where it is used for web servers, web HTTP server, it simply listens to port 80 only and responds to port 80 only, not to the other ports. So HTTP ports sends the application data stack to the output. So simply stack at the output to the lower using this HTTP protocol. So likewise, there have given some example. HTTP port uses the 80, the port number 80. You need to highlight this port number 80 there. So there some URL they have given here. They have given as like www.mheducation.com/80/. So likewise, they have given some URL in order to indicate some example regarding this HTTP. The hypertext transfer protocol uses the port number 80. A web HTTP server usually listens and responds to port 80 only, not to other. So here port 80 is essential. If you are using HTTP, if you want to implement or utilize HTTP, means you need to blindly depend on the port 80. Without port 80, it is not possible. A HTTP port usually sends the application data stack at the output to the lower using this HTTP protocol. So without this protocol, we cannot transfer the data to the lower layers also. Okay. Coming to this HTTPS, this HTTP is powered over the secured socket layer or TLS. These are the security purpose. There the port number is 443. The security has included with this HTTP. The port is 443. We shortly call it as HTTPS. So here example has given with the URL like Wikipedia, like list of UDP port numbers. There they have given some URL example there. The security got included here. So the important features of HTTP, it is a standard protocol. It is a standard protocol requesting a URL defined web page resource. Generally without a URL, without such type of URL, one cannot use this HTTP. So with the help of this URLs, http:// likewise, these URLs are framed. So these URLs resembles like this. So for sending a response to the web server or for sending some web page resource to the server, there we use this HTTP. HTTP client requests and HTTP server. Usually, all you know the procedures in between the client and server. So client requests and server there to process the request. So over the internet, there are number of things. The server responds. The server responds to the based on the request which got sent by our client. So the response may be with or without applying the processes. There with the help of HTTP is a stateless protocol, because HTTP requests some protocol assumes a fresh request. Usually every time when it receives some request, means it considers as a fresh request usually. So it unable to do such analysis that we got received the same request previously by the same end. They cannot. But there every time when they use it to receive some request, mean they feel that it is a fresh request. So it means there is no session or sequence number field or no field that retained from the next stage. Okay. So this makes the current exchange by an HTTP request every time it is a fresh, and it is going to independent of previous exchanges. It is not having a sequence number. It is not having the data about the session. That's why every time, every transaction here, it feels as a fresh one. So later exchange do not depend on the current one. So usually the e-commerce like e-commerce like applications need this state management mechanism. Like e-commerce sites like Amazon or Flipkart, the stateless feature of HTTP, so it's simply compensated with a method like method as cookie. So all you know, cookie is a text file which creates during a particular pair of exchange that HTTP request and response will be there embedded with this cookie is the creation of either this CGI, so computer graphical interfaces processing the programs. So there we require such type of cookies there for getting support for giving the supports to these e-commerce sites. The other HTTP features are authentication, persistent connections, get if modified, and byte ranges, and content type negotiation, cache protocol, cache control, and proxy support. All these are the other features which might be discussed in the advanced topics of HTTP. So there you can see with this diagrams how our HTTP is going to process in between the client and server. Usually we call client as HTTP client and server as HTTP server. There we use it to browse, we use it to get the data from internet with the help of HTTP request. We pass to our client, from our client the request will be passed to our server, and our server is going to respond to that HTTP request through different channels. Here it is not a single connection. There you can observe the bidirectional individual arrows. One is going to carry the request, another one is going to give back the response from server. So there with this HTTP client and server will be get communicates with the in the form of request and response. So there usually HTTP and HTTPS, whereas the security more security feature is provided with the HTTPS when compared with the HTTP. So the main differences here, this secure, HTTPS means secure. S here stands for secure. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. So here HTTP works at the application layer and HTTPS works at the transport layer. Here port number is 80 for HTTP and 443 for HTTPS. And no encryption is present in HTTP websites, but both encryption and decryption exists on these HTTP websites. So these are the main differences, bullet points, the top highlighted 4 points given here in order to differentiate the HTTP and HTTPS. The HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. One may ask which one is secure, means HTTP secure, HTTPS is more secure, whereas it is having encryption and decryption. Whereas there is no encryption in HTTP, it is not that much secure, and HTTP is always going to works at application layer, and HTTPS is going to works at a transport layer. Its port number is 80 regarding HTTP, and HTTPS it is the port number is 443. Okay, so these are the main differences between this HTTP and HTTP. Yes, and coming to FTP or Telnet. So there, all you know what this file transfer protocol already. So the internet allows the number of computers to converse with each other over the networks. Generally, to communicate with each other, to get exchange the data between each computer. So to get communicate with one mission with another mission, with the help of this Telnet. So Telnet is a program allows us to log into the distant computer. Almost if we are actually sitting physically at the computer, at that particular computer. So with the Telnet, it allows login into a distant computers. Almost if we are actually sitting physically at the computer. So this is Telnet. Coming to FTP, the file transfer protocol, it allows the number of files to transfer, in between the two different computers of internet, that is FTP and that is Telnet. Is anybody having any doubts regarding these two? So with the help of various application layer protocols and layer protocol port numbers, we use it to, the protocols are listed here, and the respective port numbers you can observe. Their user list is port number 17, SNMP is port number 161, FTP is 21, LDAP is 381, telnet is 23. So you need to please note down the numbering here, representing the ports of application layer protocols. COP is 5683, POP 3 is 110, DNS is 53, finger is 79. So you need to keep in your mind this numbering. So you may not write on your own. You need to recollect and remember the numbering. This numbering. Don't write your own. Okay. These port numbers are standard port numbers given by the IANA, given by the IETF, FTP 21, LDAP 389, Telnet 23, DHCP server 547, SMTP 25, and IP section, it one is 1293, DNS 53. So there you can observe XMPP with the 5222, finger is 79, XMPP SSL is 5223, POP 3 is 110, and COAP is 5683. So likewise, the port numbers as given there. So even the other ports also, even other than this tabular form, there are number of ports are there. But regarding application layer protocols, these are very important and essential. That's why I have listed here. The other numbers there you can observe the TCP and the UDP port numbers there you can observe there. The list I have given, and the same list there presented in your textbook also. Go through the list of these port numbers. Okay. So there you need to recollect while attempting the quiz, while attempting the questions in your interviews. There you need to recollect all these numberings regarding the port numbers. Okay. So this is all regarding the port numbers. The even port numbers are also going to ask in your questions, in your end exam, in your long answer questions. There you need to write the respective port numbers also. There it will be carried half of the marks and half of the weightage will be given to those port numbers also. Port numbers are also essential. Go through the textbook, note down the essential port numbers and try to recollect all those port numbers. Practice those port numbers. Okay. So the essential port numbers are this tabular form. So you need to recollect this mainly. And the other port numbers are given as like that. So I will share this PPT and go through the textbook also. Okay. So this is all regarding your unit 4. With this, our unit 4 got completed. Anybody having any doubts? Anybody having any doubts regarding this? Students respond. Anybody having any doubts? So we will go through the 5th unit freshly. I will start the 5th unit in the next class. Okay. So thank you, students. Hope all you got clear with the topics. Anybody having any doubts? Okay. We'll meet in the next class. Okay. With 5th unit. Thank you, students.